today. I'm so excited that we reconnected.
Me too.
And I'm excited for you to tell us your story. So why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about yourself?
For sure. So I'm the Senior Director of Marketing for NBC News, which means that I am responsible for all the consumer marketing efforts for the NBC News brands. Today, Nightly News with Lester Holt, Meet the Press with Chuck Todd, Dateline, and the NBC News Master brand, all across platforms, which now includes not just our shows, but digital, audio, podcast, streaming, and I know we'll get all into that as we go. I like to say that I'm a New York-born, Florida-raised New Yorker. I was born in New York. My family moved to Florida. I went to the University of Florida, but my heart was always in New York, and so I always knew that I would come back here. My parents always told me to dream big, and so I sort of never thought that that was out of my reach. And I've been here for 16 years. I've worked for 3 awesome companies. I am raising my 2 wonderful kids here in the city. I met and married my husband here. And 16 years has flown by very quickly, and there's a lot more to go.
Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations. And I want to take a step back in regards to when you started your career, you started off on the agency side. And what was that journey like?
Yeah, in college, I was all in on New York. And so I knew I needed an internship. Through a connection, I was able to get an internship at Bazaar Magazine in the fashion closet. And what that meant was I worked in a Devil Wears Prada moment before the movie. I would sit in the fashion closet all day and wait for editors to come in, selecting pieces for their stories, wanting to unpack boxes with you. And so while a lot of it was manual labor, I was constantly exposed to top tier editors, top tier executives, and really was just able to watch their process and watch what they did on a day-to-day basis. I learned to work in a professional environment, which, I think you can't say enough about that. And the following summer, I was able to use that internship experience and really sell it to get myself an internship at an agency called Badger and Partners. I think they're now called Badger and Winters. I didn't know it at the time that I was working for one of the most tenured women in the advertising agency, Madonna Badger, which looking back now, like how could I not have known that? But I didn't. And the benefit to me of that agency is they were small, like very small. And therefore, I was welcomed. I was welcomed in on meetings and calls and creative review sessions and really everything that you would almost go in blindly on if you hadn't had that internship experience. I used that internship experience to get myself my first job. I was able to secure an interview at Young and Rubicam, obviously one of the biggest ad agencies in the industry. But because I wasn't an advertising major in college, I was actually a business marketing major, and I hadn't taken any advertising classes. I didn't speak the advertising language, and I think that the interviewer got that. And by no, purposeful purpose of me doing this, I think I was just honest about what I was interested in. And she came back and said, same day, we have this agency within Young and Rubicam called Brand Buzz. This is about them. This is what they do. We think you'd be a good fit there. And I was. It was one of the first true 360 agencies in the industry, which meant that under one roof, we had PR, events, marketing, digital, right? Digital back in 2004. That was like, what is digital?
Right.
What is digital marketing? And it was just such a lesson to me having, landed there, which was just like, be yourself in the interview. Don't try to oversell what you know and oversell your skills, because if you just are, sort of show your true potential, show what you're interested in, show what you, want to learn more about, if you're blessed with a good interviewer, they'll find you the place when they see your potential. And that is just really what happened to me. You know, because we were, again, smaller, on the smaller side, I was put into probably situations that were beyond my years. I was working on LG Electronics, which if you've ever worked with Korean clients, it is, as a woman, it is a very interesting role to be in. And as a 22-year-old woman, you know, I really had to stand up and find my voice in those rooms. And, you know, did that, got to work on Sony, and just, you know, learn from great people at a, you know, and learn the advertising business, quite frankly, a business I hardly knew existed, honestly, when I started. And I stuck with it. I made the transition to translation, which also came from a career learning, which was to keep your bridges tight. A long convoluted story, which is that I was invited to a going away dinner for somebody from Brambis that I probably had no business being at. I went to that dinner, heard about this place that this woman was going to, where her old boss was going to start an agency where they were going to connect celebrities and brands. And in my head at that moment, I was like, I must keep in touch with every old boss I've ever met, because if this is how you get your next job, you know, if my bosses go and do great things and they'll bring me, if this is how it works, then, and ironically it was, she went over to translation. She brought somebody else from Brambis. She brought somebody else from Brambis. And then I got the call and went over, and, you know, lesson learned. So, always keep in touch with your bosses and your clients.
No, that's great. That's great. And you have a lot of fans on here today, Lauren, because people are like so proud of you, Lauren. Love listening to I edit. Absolutely, we're all super excited. Lauren has a great story. So let me ask you this question before, because I wanna talk a little bit too about your transition from the agency side to obviously the brand side now at NBC, but when you worked on the agency side, can you think of like one client or one project that you were like, God, this was like the best project that I worked on? I'm just curious, because I know that on the agency side, you get to touch so many different things. And I'm just curious if there's one that sticks out.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say two. So, because I would be remiss not to say the Brooklyn Nets and the Barclays Center, of course, which is where you and I met. I think, you know, introducing a new sports team and arena into the most powerful sports market in the world, it's a career highlight that will be ever hard to top. I think it taught me a lot about local advertising and marketing. You know, as much as the Barclays Center and the Brooklyn Nets became a global brand, quite frankly, what we were doing was connecting with local audiences, right? It was tumultuous. They didn't want us there a lot of the time in their neighborhood. You know, we created this Hello Brooklyn campaign, which took off on social. We all know the merchandise flew off the shelves, and those were really the first indications that we were going to be embraced by the community. Everything else came later, the ticket sales and the sponsorships and all the important money things. But I think like going from being in a hard hat at the construction site to then seeing people wear the merchandise and really embrace the team was just such a career, you know, moment for me. That said, I mean, my 8 years at translation were just phenomenal, you know, from Samsung to Estee Lauder to Sprite. But the one that really, I think, has stood with me is Target, was my client for 3 years. Steve had secured a meeting with the head of multicultural marketing, Greg Cunningham. We flew to Minneapolis, and by the time we left the meeting, we were going to work on the African-American marketing for Target, and I was going to lead it. And that was ridiculous. And I certainly had never done that before. I had never worked in multicultural marketing, right? But Steve's perspective was so different on what that meant.
Yeah.
And it really gave me the permission to lead that at the translation side. And, you know, the African-American stores were underperforming. Target just really hadn't forged a relationship with that audience. And so that's what we did. We worked together over the next 3 years to forge those relationships with influencers, with beauty brands that we brought into the store, with opening the Target store in Harlem. And, you know, professionally for me, just being in rooms where I, you know, would have been considered not likely to be in, and being the marketing voice there just gave me confidence as a marketer that I don't know that I would have, you know, gotten anyplace else. And I mean, Target was like my dream brand. So Target.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. So how did you go from the agency side to now NBC? And by the way, we have a mutual friend, Allie Tuck, who was like, love Lauren. Yes, Allie, love her too.
I know. She preceded me on the series, and I laughed and I loved it.
Yeah, so how did you make that transition, Lauren?
You know, I had spent nearly 8 years at translation, building the agency to over 100 people. I had transitioned from client services to doing more of like the new business and marketing of the agency itself. I'm a very loyal person, possibly to a fault. But I think you really have to recognize when the opportunities someplace don't match your ambitions, and when you frankly don't match the ambitions of the company. It was time for me to find a new challenge, and thankfully Steve gave me the space and time to do it. I knew, you know, from working on Target and doing that for so long that I really wanted to work on like a loved brand and a brand that I loved. But I also knew that like I needed something that was going to challenge me, because I am a loyal person. I stay where I am. And so I kept saying, like, I don't want to sell toothpaste. No offense to like, if you have any P&G marketers on here, but I didn't believe that it was going to be a changing industry enough. And so I really started looking at media, and I mean, serendipitously, the director of marketing role came up for the Today Show. And I will be honest, I don't know if my boss is on here, but I did not know what that meant. Like, I didn't know what it meant to market a morning news show. I don't even think I knew that Today Show was considered news. Like, there was a lot of things I didn't know, but I knew I loved the Today Show. I knew that people loved the Today Show. Yep. And I also knew that viewing habits were changing. Media habits are something that change over time. And so it just, the puzzle pieces fit right. I clicked with my boss, who's still my boss now, almost 7 years later. And it's brought me a lot of things. I mean, now I work on all the news brands.
Yeah, you just froze for a second.
Am I back?
No, not yet.
Shoot, I'm totally frozen.
Okay, it'll be fine. You'll come back.
Hold on.
Okay.
Should I reconnect?
Yeah, you want to try,
I'll join back in.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, Lauren, yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Hang on 1 second, guys. We're gonna get Lauren back. She froze. So hang with us for 10 seconds while we get her back. Okay. Okay. We're bringing her back on. Hang tight. Hang tight. Oh, there you are.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Technology. So, you know, now I work on, like I said, Nightly News, Meet the Press. These are the most legacied and loved news brands in the world, in an industry that is changing. Audio, streaming, none of this existed. we are the client and also we are the agency, right? We're a partner to our executive producers. We understand what it is they're doing on their shows, on their platforms, and then we determine how to prioritize that. And then, I mean, you can't say enough about the news business. It is fast-paced. It is ever-changing. 7 years later, no day feels the same. And just keeping pace with the news cycle while also trying to wear like a strategic brand marketing hat is a challenge every single day, to not get caught in the spin cycle.
Right.
Quite frankly.
Right.
And so, that is what has kept me there. And, being able to take on new challenges every day is what will continue.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, we have someone from our audience who said, I love your honesty. This is a great example for the younger generation. Yeah. So, Lauren, based on your amazing career to date, because I've loved to see your progression and I love that you've been so successful, would you be able to share 3 career insights with our audience today? And whether it's you're just starting out C-level, or mid-level, what would be those career insights that you would share?
Yeah, and obviously following this series that you've set up, I had a lot of time to think about it because everyone that you've had on here has shared such great things. But I tried to, come up with things that I really live by. So the first one is, practice career karma and be a champion for others. Career karma, I use the term, and it's my belief that the effort that you put in for others will come back to you. Sometimes that means just helping someone with their resume, sharing a job opportunity on LinkedIn. For me, it means oftentimes saying yes to informational interviews for younger people. And sometimes, frankly, it means making tougher decisions. Recently, one of my brand managers was not going to be able to get the growth opportunities that she needed on my team. And so voluntarily, we gave her up and offered her to another team that had a hole to fill. Left us short-staffed. She may be on here. Hi, LB. But it was the right move. I was so confident in it, and it was painful to me. She was like, a right arm. She was a friend, but she needed it, and I know again that will come back to me.
Yeah,
one day.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is become a go-to person. Have information, have ideas, have solutions, and people will seek you out. You'll become known for something. And if you can become a go-to person, then what does that say about you? You're reliable, right? You're dependable. You are a name that will be brought up in rooms that you are not in, because people will acknowledge that you're the one with the information, with the solution, with the answer, or frankly, you're the one who could connect them to the right person. Right. So really becoming that go-to person. And I think the last one is, I mentioned it before, you have to recognize when you need a new challenge to grow. Yep. Sometimes you outgrow a place, sometimes the place, outgrows you. And owning up to that is really tough. It is easy to stay where you are. And I think that moment where you really recognize that you need to go for both your benefit and theirs, like you've hit the peak career maturity. And until then, just be fiercely loyal. I think you shouldn't live in like the in-between space, right? You're either got to be like all in on the place, or you've got to go. Yeah. So yeah, that's the 3.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I will offer one more thing.
Yeah.
My dad, who is not on Instagram, though I will show this to him. He taught me to ask for the job, and I hated this advice. When I would go for interviews, for internships, for retail jobs, for my first job, he told me that I could not leave the room until I said to them something to the effect of, is there a reason why you would not offer me this position right now? And I hated it. And I was like, that's terrible. Like, you can't say that to somebody.
Yeah.
and I've never gotten a negative response to it. I don't always get an answer to it, right? Like sometimes people are just caught off guard and they're like, well, we're not done interviewing. Okay, like that's fine. But I've never gotten like a how dare you ask me that. And so that is something that has stuck with me. And I thought, maybe I would just share it with everybody.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I love it. I love that you have been able to, tie a thread through your experiences that connect to your career insights. And I feel so lucky to kick off this year with you as a guest, because on my side, I could see all the little hearts going. So that means that everyone is fully engaged and really enjoying the conversation. So,
well, I'm excited to bring, I felt I was pushing this hard, not because I wanted everybody to watch me, but because I just, you've turned something that, was a passion project into, I think, something that people can really learn from. And
thank you.
I spent some of my winter break, watching some of the ones I had missed. And it's just people that I would never, ever be exposed to. And so what you're doing is fantastic.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I appreciate that, because this, the essence of this is just to give women a platform to tell their story, because to echo your sentiment, so many people would never hear these stories. And the other thing that I love about this community is that we're connecting people, right? So it's, to hear or to see Allie be like, yeah, Lauren's going to be like, yeah, So, thank you. And I'm glad that we reconnected. And I thank you for your patience in rescheduling.
Oh, yeah.
Because, life just happens. But I'm so happy
that was a nice way to start the year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm happy that we started off with you, Lauren. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we'll see everyone back here on Thursday. Thanks, Lauren. Okay, bye-bye.